All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. We might have a few stragglers as we go here. I am going to do a couple of things. How many of you have either applied to this award before, or maybe have been interested in applying but never quite pulled it over to the finish line, just to get a sense of who's in the room? So if you've applied before, raise your hand or put the emoji one up. Couple of people. Okay, small handful of people. Okay, that's great. And then it sounds like there's quite a few new folks, which is really exciting. So we are going to, for the folks that have applied before, maybe you've attended an info session before, there might be some repeat information, but of course it's always, I think we always try to add a little bit more insight into maybe things that have kind of come to light over the last couple of years, and things that we can continue to provide to support you while you're going through your application here. So what I wanted to start out with is, of course, sharing my screen and just walk you through very quickly. You're all working professionals here, but walk you through what the application process looks like, and make sure that you don't have any questions there. So to start, this is our fellowship page. I'm sure since you're here, you have spent at least a little bit of time on this page. The couple of things that I want to point out to you, there are two different fellowships that we operate. This info session is specifically about our VEB fellowship, which has been going on for 24 years, because next year is going to be our 25th year of running this fellowship, and we are going to have a big party for it. So stay tuned for more information on that. But also a couple of years ago, we started the Pat Sanchez Women's Fellowship. And so I want to draw attention to it. They are both quite different in their awarding amounts and in kind of the expectations, but at the same time, I want to make sure that people are aware of both of them, because maybe if one of them doesn't work out for you, if the VEB fellowship doesn't work out for you, please consider applying to the Women's Fellowship. You can apply to both of them. You can't be awarded both of them, but you can apply to both of them. So take a little bit of time and make sure that you're just aware of what's going on with that Pat Sanchez Women's Fellowship as well. I also encourage you to look at the history of our AFO fellows. This is just an interesting way for you to be able to see what people's projects have been and what kind of awards they have been given, what they've done with their awards. So it's very interesting, and you're able to see really the wide variety of different projects that people have taken on. And we also try to, when you click on them, it will show you just give you a little bit of information about what their fellowship was. And in a lot of cases, it will also tell you a little bit about that dissemination piece, which we try to encourage as a part of the fellowship. So I think that's just really good to have additional information in there to explore. So when you are ready to get your application going, you can click on this Learn More button and then go to the Evera Bailey Fellowship. This page has all of the information. This is basically what the IFP, the Invitation for Proposals, has in it, kind of copied and pasted. So you can look at this document, but you can also go through this one with the timeline and examples and all of that information there. So just check that out, and let us know if you have any questions. We spent a lot more time talking about it last year, but you can read about the doubling of our funding. Just last year, we went from $25,000 for this fellowship award to $50,000. This was a very intentional thing that we did to ensure that people we're responding to the cost of living, the cost of traveling, the cost of potentially taking time off work. As all of those things are increasing, that we are able to meet or at least fill in more of those costs with this fellowship here. So if you want to learn more about that funding, you can click on this link here, but we are really excited to bring that increase in funding this past year. So We will continue it this year. And then when you're ready to apply, this is what the application looks like. You will have to, we use a platform this year called Submittable. We've been using it for several years now. Next year, we will change the platform itself, but this year we're still using Submittable. You have to make an account to be able to fill out your fellowship application. So just know that that will be a step of it. And then you have all of that information in here for you to fill out and apply. I think that it's always a good practice with these kinds of things to work in a Word document and then copy and paste your answers in here just so that you can keep an eye on word counts and do your wordsmithing without having to work in this document. But you do have the option to save your draft if you are working directly in here before you submit it, so you don't have to do all of those things at once. So I'm sure you are well versed in just navigating generally how to fill out these kind of application forms, but those are kind of the basics of it. So a little bit of history here. So this award, like I said, has been going on since 2001. Next year will be our 25th anniversary, which we're super excited about. I wanted to share the purposes of the fund that this is being funded by. So back in 1982, Evera Bailey put together this fund with the Oregon Community Foundation, but they really didn't have folks with the expertise to be able to distribute or administer the funds, as they partnered with AFO to do that distribution through this fellowship. So it is important to us to carry forward the vision of what the VEB fund was put in place for, while also ensuring that we are sticking with the AFO mission. Our mission is evolving, the purposes of our programs are evolving, so we want to make sure that those two mesh. So I want to read this out for you. For the preservation and betterment of the art and science of architecture in the state of Oregon, and it is the trusters' wish, although they do not direct it, that some part of the net income of the fund be distributed for postgraduate educational purposes related to architecture. So that's really where we fit, is in this postgraduate education. So kind of self-directed education with this research. So that's what we're trying to accomplish with this. That's pretty vague. That is a lot of opportunity to explore what that definition looks like for you, what the definition of the art and science of architecture looks like for you, right? We have had folks that have done photography projects. We have had folks that are doing more landscape architecture projects. One of the probably most well-known projects that you have seen that has come out, this is the Winter Lights Festival. So that's also much more of a kind of community activation engagement project with designers and architects that are involved in it. But there are a lot of different ways that you can take this, and it's really up for you to define what that means to you. So I have been helping out with the administration of this fellowship for 3 years now. And so I have been able to, and it's been around for 25 years. So take that with with the information that I have a few years of experience of doing this, but there are several of my colleagues, and then of course Kwong and Jen, who will be sharing their experiences a little bit later, that can maybe share, you know, more from that like historical perspective of what this all looks like. But in the past few years, several items have come up in our discussions when we are going through the selection process that I think it's good for you all to know prior, so that that can help inform you while you're filling out that application. So first and foremost, explaining who the project is designed to impact. That is maybe seems simple, but is quite large and maybe a little bit vague, right? So we often will have these conversations of, is this advancing an individual? Is this advancing the building profession? And or is this advancing a specific community? Maybe it's a community that's not necessarily plugged into the built environment, but is greatly impacted by that built environment. It can be all three of those things. It can be just one of those things. But what we need from you as applicants is to really define what that is, who that person or group of people is, and what impact looks like for those people. Again, that will be so different from for an individual versus a large community of people. Describe this dissemination piece, I think, is always a little bit of a question. This is part of, like we said, the VEB fund wishes that what you are exploring and what you are researching is not just for you, but you are able to share it with others. We make that intentionally very easy for you to accomplish it one way, and then you can do even more from that if you wish. We require, although, if things come up and you're not able to do it, it's not, it won't ding you any points, or we won't ask for your funding back or anything. But every year we do a celebration of the past year's fellow, and they do a presentation on what they researched, what they did, and then kind of what's next for them. So that can be your dissemination piece, and that can be it for you. There are others, actually several, Kwong being one of them, that have created books, created publications that they can disseminate in that way. I'll go back to the Winter Lights Festival. That's quite a public, community-based dissemination that's happening year after year. A lot of people do installations, if it's an art installation or like a placemaking type of project, that also works too. But it's really important for you to not only take what you learned for yourself as an individual, but allow for others to experience what you learned as well. We also kind of have a question of who should be applying. Is this for mid-career professionals? Is this for a certain age group? What does that look like? And the answer is, again, pretty vague. We have used terms like mid-career professionals. That can be, a little confusing if maybe mid-career you changed careers and you're kind of just starting out in the built environment, but you are excited about certain topics. So what we really look at is, what experiences are you bringing to this conversation, to this project? We love to see that somebody has been thinking about this, has been looking at an existing problem for years, and are starting to ideate about different ways that we could approach this topic, approach this problem, if it's a problem, or explore something different. But that level of expertise is really, I think, essential to this conversation. If it's something that you've been just kind of, has kind of come up over just the past year or so, I think that shows in an application, and it's really, I think, interesting to be able to say, I have looked at this, in a lot of different ways. I've never had the time to explore it further, and this would allow me to explore it further, time and resources. This is another thing that I think has especially come up just these past few years, is an organization versus an individual. And we have, as an organization, as a selection committee, I think we have never drawn a line in the sand to say an organization is not applicable for this. That said, I think that the selection committee has been much more intrigued by, and I think it really fulfills the purpose of the fund and the purpose of the fellowship. This is a fellowship. A fellowship is supposed to be about an individual. And so, again, I wouldn't discourage you if you are trying to apply on behalf of an organization, but this is not a grant for an organization, right? This is not a foundation. Well, we are a foundation, but this is not your typical foundation grant. This is really meant to be about advancing you as an individual and what kind of impact that's going to have on you in the profession. So I would really take that. You could be a leader of an organization, and maybe the dissemination of it or the impact of what you research will impact or advance your organization. But the fellowship should really be going to an individual who wants to advance this further. So hopefully that will answer some questions for some people. And then the last one that I wanted to cover that comes up is, would this happen with or without this funding, right? I think that this is also something that we really like to see this as like a jump start to an idea that has been percolating. Maybe people have been working on it in their spare time, but would not have that catalyst to be able to take it to the next level. Sometimes we get things that are a little bit more established, things that people have already been working on, they already have secured funding and they want more funding for it. Again, there's no hard line with that. That's not something that I want to fully discourage you from applying to this for, but this is really meant to allow for you to push further into an area that you never would have pushed into before, as opposed to funding something that has already been going on and will likely go on with or without this funding. Okay, that was what I wanted to cover in my section. I want to pause really quick and see if there are, well, no, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to turn it over to Kwong and Jen, and then we'll open it up for all questions at the end, because Kwong and Jen are both recipients of the fellowship, past recipients of the fellowship, and they serve on our selection committee. So they've been able to see both sides of what we're doing here. And I think that that will give you probably even more information to kind of percolate on, and then we can delve into questions. So I'm going to turn it over first to Kwong, who won in 2016, and let him share a little bit more about his experience. So take it away, Kwong.
Sure. Thanks, Jen. My name is Kwong, and I'm happy to see so many of you that I know already. But my main perspective that I want to share with regards to the VEB Fellowship is just that I think it is the most amazing opportunity for architects. I mean, it is $50,000. The vagueness that Erica was talking about translates realistically into kind of like this openness, and this inclusiveness, both in terms of like who's eligible, but also the range of projects that can, reasonably be proposed. I think Erica did a great job sharing like all the factors that go into the decisions that we try to take into consideration when we look at proposals. But just generally, it is an amazing opportunity for the advancement of ideas, for the engagement of people in the built environment. It's $50,000, very few strings attached, geared towards professionals in the built environment. And I feel like there's so few opportunities like that. So many of the other awards for architects are just graduates, or they require stays or travel, which, excludes so many of us who are later in our professional careers, but still have so much that we want to contribute. So I had a bunch of slides that I was going to show about my work, but it was like 10 years ago, and it might be distracting more than anything. So I'm not going to show them, but I just want to say, like, I encourage everybody to apply. I think we are in a moment where the power and the impact of design needs particular attention and bolstering. And so I'm so happy to see folks applying for this. I think that I would encourage everybody to take their experiences and their expertise and try and direct it in a way that can impact, hopefully a broader community. That's my main perspective. I think that's all I would like to say. I'm just happy to see folks. We're trying to get the word out more about this award, because I just think it is, has a potential to be so transformational. You can see all the other past projects, and I think that's just starting to get at what's possible with this award. So yeah, happy to turn it over to Jen at this point now as well.
Thanks, Kwon and Erica. I definitely have to reiterate what Kwon is saying in terms of the flexibility and the opportunity. And I guess my perspective as well is the idea of persistence and focus, and continually crafting perhaps your message. So I was the 2018 fellow, and that was the fourth time that I had submitted for the fellowship. So and it wasn't in consecutive years. Initially, there were two consecutive years where I was focusing on this idea of collaboration with local crafters and how we as designers could do this at an earlier stage in the design so we could eliminate some of the VE. It's kind of pragmatic. Um, and then took a couple years off and realized that my true passion was a continuation of what I was doing at the time, which was leading the AI. At the time, it was the Forward Committee. Some of you might have remembered that as the Forum for Women in Architecture and Related Design. And then that morphed into the Committee on Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. So there was, at the time, 2016, a survey that came out from the missing 32%, which went on to become the Equity in Design group. And one of the main things that came out of that was intriguing was just the amount of women specifically that were leaving the profession. Even though it was about equal men to women graduating, there was definitely a lot of attrition for women in the profession. So my focus then really became why, and then honing in on the idea that the lack of construction classes, lessons, know-how was holding women back in the design roles. So that was my main focus that I started really being passionate about, and that created these second rounds of submitting for the fellowship. And from there, it was successful, which was amazing. And one of the things that I really took away from that, and also is in alignment with when we review the submissions, is really focusing on what is a continuation of what you've been passionate or working on or interested thus far in your career. At that time, I was about 15 years into my career. And also just a really strong kind of framework or why that you can use to link up all of your content and copy that you're submitting to the committee for review. So those are kind of the two main things that I think after having submitted, several times, it just became stronger and stronger. I also, and this is something that you have the opportunity, I believe, to do too. I had asked for feedback from some of the people that were in the jury, which helped then for the next year. So I think that those are kind of at least the main points that I had wanted to share with everybody.
Oh, I also wanted to say there's a question we always get, and it relates to the working professionals. One of the questions we typically get is like, well, I have a full-time job. Can I do this fellowship while I have a full-time job? And the answer is a definite yes. It's built for working professionals, so the fellowship, can accommodate the timelines and the budget that would work for you. I'll give an example of what I did. At that time, I was working for Lever Architecture. I kind of just asked Thomas, the principal, just to, if I could take 2 weeks off for one of these things. And he was gracious enough to allow that. It worked with my schedule. Of course, I had to work it in with the project deliverables that I was working with, but figuring out a way to work it into your working life. Many of you have families. I did at the time as well. Working that fellowship into your professional obligations, your family obligations is something that we love to see and understand that is for many people, a very real part of their contributions to the greater community. So I just wanted to say that too, because I think it's important. It is designed for those who are, have obligations, both professionally as well as otherwise. So.
Yeah, and I think on that note, a lot of firms at this point know of this fellowship, right? And so they are aware of what that means. Most of them, I think, know that it's been increased to $50,000, which just means that you can do even more with it. Maybe that's increased travel. Like I said, maybe that is taking a sabbatical. But I think I have not personally been in any of those conversations, but I have yet to see a fellow or hear about a fellow who received the fellowship and then came back and said, my work isn't supporting this, and so therefore I need to forego the fellowship, right? So I think, definitely know what this is and what it looks like, and be able to articulate what that will look like in your timeline and everything. But then, I have yet to see it not be supported by teams. Families are, a whole different ballgame of demands, and I can't be a part of that. But hopefully you can, have support for that too. So yeah, so Kwong and Jen and I are here for your questions, and we'll answer them to the best of our ability, but we'd love to open the floor now to any questions that people have. Feel free to have, questions kind of from a high level or specific to your project. We don't mind answering those if you don't mind asking them in front of other people.
Um, Are there any specific differences in the application process if you're applying as like a partnership, if you have like two people applying for it?
Good question. Not in the application process, and we have had several people receive the fellowship as a partnership. So just, it will ask you kind of who is a part of this fellowship application, and then kind of the different roles that people play. I think especially when you're talking about the impact that it's having. Why are two people doing this instead of one? Are they each bringing a different perspective to the conversation? And yeah, so be able to articulate it in there. But there are, like I said, several people who have applied and won as part of a partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Heather, you had your hand up.
I sure did. I'm just curious about if impact within Oregon is considered in the calculation to determine the winner. Like if the proposal is specifically impacting groups in Oregon.
Versus all over the place, or versus just
Sure. I mean, it
Portland
could be
or
both,
something?
I would assume, but if that plays into sort of the decision-making process.
Sure. Great question. We have had fellows, again, these are the people that I especially know of are the ones that have won. And we have had fellows that maybe reside in Oregon, but all of the work, I'm thinking specifically of Todd Lawson. Was it Todd? I think it was Todd Lawson who, resides in Oregon, but his tribe that he was from was all in Washington. And so the impact that he was having was in Washington, and that is totally okay. The Architecture Foundation of Oregon, of course, we want it to be Oregon. Of course, we want it to not just be Portland, or we want to have the opportunity for it to go beyond Portland. But at the same time, we very much understand we are like right smack on the, on the border up to Washington. The general region is really impactful. Last year's winner, Rand, who is doing work on the Ice Age floods, that is, not only spans both Washington and Oregon, but also I think I'm all the way out into Montana and Idaho. And so that was an exciting thing, I think, for us to be able to discuss, was geographically how far of an impact that it had. So explain it. I think having a tie to Oregon, and it can be you as a person, but having a tie to Oregon is always a bonus. But we're certainly open to and have awarded things that go beyond.
Yeah, I think if you're just located here, that already satisfies a big part of the component. uh, I think, yeah,
Sure.
that you can build ties because of the VEB original charter and as well as the AFO mission. Some tie to Oregon is important, but you just being here in Oregon is already perhaps could qualify, and then you would have to think of a way that it would not. That I think to worry about it.
Yeah. And I do think just one other note on that. I think earlier, just a few months ago, I had somebody ask a question that they are from like Chicago and they live here, work at ZGF, but they wanted to do a project about a community in Chicago. Again, I said there's no hard line. You living in Oregon is a big part of it, but I would not consider that to be as competitive as something that is in our general region. That is a bit far for the purposes of this award. So another part of it. Gwen, and then Chandra, I saw you go off mute too, so we can go to you next. So Gwen, go ahead.
Thanks, Erica. Just to build off Jeff's question, if we're putting a team together, we're looking at maybe 3 people and it being more of a multidisciplinary team. So one as a mid-career architect, but the others maybe not in necessarily architecture or has a background, but not a registered architect. Is that
Totally fine.
okay? And okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And I think, it's not, again, obviously the fund says stuff about the art and science of architecture, and there should be some element of architecture and design in there. But I think multidisciplinary is even more intriguing. I think that AFO really exists to expand out from just the architecture or just the AEC world and ensure that people are understanding that the built environment is something that we are all experiencing, and we are only better as citizens in this world if we have a good understanding of how those things are designed and built, and who is at the decision-making helm. And so I think that, like, from an AFO perspective, that is fantastic. Absolutely not something to not apply with.
Right.
Chandra?
Yeah, thanks. So last year when I decided to apply, I didn't leave myself a ton of time. And so what I found was that getting letters of recommendation, it actually takes a while. You got to give people time to get you something. And they're always like, well, what do you want me to say? And like, the text in the, requirements is that they're talking about your project and how important it is. And so I'm kind of wondering about that. Like, because I think mine were more about like my ability to do a project or ability to do a lot of things, but not specific to my project, because otherwise I'd have to explain the whole thing to them and really have them. So I don't know if you can tell me anything about how you're evaluating the letters of recommendation.
Great question. I think what I would love to do, I have some thoughts, but I think I would love to hear from Kwong and Jen about your process of getting letters of recommendation. Did you sit down with people to kind of explain your letters before? What, from the selection committee perspective, do you bring when it comes to letters of recommendation?
Yeah, I was going to say, I do believe as a committee, we're looking to those letters not only to see or to verify or justify your credentialing or your background or your professionality, whatever it might be, but that they're also, yes, you've sat down with them, you've shared what you want to do, and they're basically, I guess, vouching for your passion towards whatever you're trying to do. Like, they can see that, yes, this is really important to them. They definitely have the credentials and the working background or whatever it is that they're being tasked to recommend. But I do think it's important to have, or for them to have that knowledge, I guess, that aspirational knowledge of whatever you're trying to do. So.
I will say I've seen successful recommendations or what we feel are compelling recommendations that kind of go along 2 different directions. One kind of showcases that person's involvement and expertise with whatever they're trying to do. Like sometimes there are letters of recommendation that directly align with the proposal of that project, and it shows kind of depth of relationship and investigation that is a very meaningful supplement to their application. And then, of course, there's also the letters of recommendation that are a testament to that person's ability to execute and to collaborate and to achieve, goals that are established. And I think those are the 2 kind of successful letters of recommendation. So I would say that you don't necessarily need that person to have intimate awareness of your project or proposal, but they can be successful, but sometimes the other one was just kind of a testament to that person's ability to achieve goals that they establish for themselves. As we know in architecture, architecture is such a collaborative and design is such an impactful process and engagement. So those letters of recommendation, kind of give testimony to the proposal and or that person's ability to, achieve the things that they set out to achieve.
Thanks, that's helpful.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that they both said. I think it really is about you as a person. Often these are not ideas that have begun, let alone, been proven that people can speak to. I think if you go so far as to hop on the phone with them or have a coffee chat with them to explain it a little bit better, if they feel like they want to be more informed, I think that can always help. But I don't think that we necessarily on the selection committee look at it and say, do they really know what this project is? It's a lot about you as a person and what you're able to accomplish, like you said. What other questions do people have? Anything from the U of O contingent? Nobody wants to ask questions in front of their fellow competition.
I just heard about this morning from Nancy's email. As far as like the submission requirements in the portfolio, are there any size requirements or anything like that we need to be aware of?
Sorry, any what requirements?
Like formatting, like is it 8.5 by 11? Can it be?
No, super open, and often people's what they're submitting can be all different types of mediums and everything. So we definitely don't judge it on that kind of quality. As high as quality as you can get, but some people have video to showcase from their work.
Okay.
Some people have drawings, photography, so it really spans a lot of different mediums. So,
All right, thank you.
mhm. Any other questions?
And who is on the selection jury?
Great question. We don't share all of the individuals that we have on each selection committee. Myself, Kwong, and Jen, I'm not a selector, but I do help with ensuring that this still stays within AFO's mission and vision here. But I can tell you kind of the general makeup, all in that I think mid-career to late career professionals in the AEC industry. So there are people specifically within architecture, and then there are some that are in engineering or construction that can bring that perspective as well. We have at this point, I think this is roughly true, that we have about 50% that are previous fellowship winners. So they are able to bring their perspective to say, I know what this takes. I know what kind of dedication you need to have for it. And I think less important of each individual's perspective, but the conversation that we're able to bring to the group because of those different perspectives is really important, because again, those fellows are so different from one another that, someone can say, yeah, I had something a little bit similar to this, and this was what really struck me about this application. Somebody else can say, I brought a completely different thing, but this is really striking me about it. So I think that has really worked in our favor. So a really great group of people that are in that mid-career kind of can understand what it would be like. We have a couple of AFO board members serving on that selection committee, but quite a few non-board member committee, community members that are contributing in that way.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. And most, maybe 75% of them are, repeat year after year. They've done this for several years, so they can bring that perspective as well. Go ahead, Heather.
Well, given that and not knowing exactly who is comprising of the jury, it's still pretty open in terms of reaching out to people like Kwong and Jen and other past winners to get
Yes.
more information, and they can let us
100%.
know. Okay.
Totally. And people are so generous with their time and understanding that this really is so helpful in that way. The reason why we don't give it out is that we don't want anyone who, might not win to take it up with someone on that selection committee. It's always a group decision. We often have, maybe need to take some time and go through things and reconvene. So, just to ensure that it remains this group as opposed to just individuals. But I think usually Kwong and Jen pop their emails into the chat. And so you are absolutely welcome to reach out to them. And again, take a look at our past fellows roster. And if you know any of those individuals, you are welcome to reach out to them and ask for more information. And I'm also available too. I'm not as experienced from that back end perspective or no, I am more, I guess, on the back end, but from the application and then the actual, dissemination of the projects. But I can help if you have any questions about kind of logistics or eligibility or anything. Oh, I could pop my email in here as well.
Will this recording of this meeting be shared?
It is. It will be shared and it will be posted on our website, so you can refer to it. You can refer to previous years. It's on they're on the website too. I would not say that we have covered that those meetings have necessarily covered anything that we haven't covered in this meeting. I do know in the past Kwong has done some longer presentations about his specific project. So if you wanted to look 10 years ago, what Kwong had accomplished and just get a better sense of that. But yes, you're able to access this recording at any time.
Thank you.
Can I ask an additional question, which is just, I'm just curious about last year's winner, knowing a little bit about that submission. If since we have folks on the selection committee here, if you could just talk about what was the big thing that sort of made that one the winner, if you don't mind. Or what stood out about it.
Juan, you're not gonna weigh in. I know we had a lot of conversation back and forth. It was definitely not an easy one and done kind of thing. And there was, in this particular one, I remember there was discussion about is this too ambitious? That definitely comes up with some, because when you see the totality of what the plan is, and I should say, even you might start with one plan and at the end of the year with the research and everything that you've done, realize like, oh, that was my theory. Maybe maybe it didn't come to fruition or it changed. But yeah, I do recall that it was a discussion about it. This being an ambitious project. And also this person had a long time, I would say, not long time. They had been involved with this research and had been connected to organizations, even in a kind of a leadership role for quite a while. So it was evident that this had been something that they were interested for a while, and even on their own would pursue it. So that's something that we also discuss as well, or take into consideration.
I would say that we were actually just so happy to see the quality of so many proposals last year. It was a very tough decision, and I actually wish that everybody who applied last year would apply this year. I hope will do so. It was a really tough discussion. There are 8 of us on the committee, and we all had, very different viewpoints that we brought to it. And it's actually a very fun discussion to have about why we feel one proposal, in a sense, kind of deserves the award, but it isn't necessarily a clear-cut thing. I think it could have gone any number of ways, and it's also kind of the reason why feedback is so hard to give, because some years, like last year, we had, oh, just any number of proposals that we would really happy to see win. And then some years we get a lot fewer proposals, and it's hard because in a sense every year you have a different context to make that decision, right? You have a different context of the competing applications. So the last year's winner had a number of really wonderful things that we'd love to see being proposed, that were also kind of felt like fresh, that hadn't been proposed similarly before. And that was one factor that went into it. It felt original in a kind of way that we just hadn't seen it in committee for a while. But there were so many great proposals, and it is often hard to kind of pinpoint why there was one. It's a discussion that we have. Sometimes, our committee ends up meeting 2-3 times. We end at the allotted time. If we don't have a decision, we have to come back to it. That's the best case scenario. So I don't know if that gives any particular insight, but I will say that, yeah, there are many great reasons to recommend a proposal over a context, and sometimes that context is a dynamic and shifting thing. It's hard to kind of necessarily pinpoint. Sorry, that was a big nothing burger response, but so.
No, very helpful. Thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah, I think every year it's like, oh gosh, these are apples and oranges and cherries. Like how do we decide that or compare these against each other? They are all so different. I think what was, Kwong talked about the unique and freshness. I think what was really intriguing about last year's was this statewide slash region wide reach. It was just very geographical, that allowed for a little bit of an expansion, I think, on something that AFO has really been pushing for in the last few years we serve Portland. Portland is the biggest metro area in Oregon, and we are located in Portland. Not to say that we don't do that we're trying to not do Portland things, but it was exciting to see something that allowed for a larger regional impact and exploration. I think that really stood out about his, but I mean, they've both said it, and I'm sure it sounds like we say this every year, but man, we went around, I think, the top 5 several times, and any one of them could have been the one that we selected, and we would have felt fantastic about it. So it was definitely a tough decision, but one that we're excited to support. And I think also, with this increase of funding, when we're looking for, or when we have people who have served on the committee for many years, we were able to say, like, okay, this person did this with $25,000. This person did this with $25,000. We could look at that a little bit more analytically. This is a whole new ball game, right? And so we did have to, especially last year, and I think we'll continue to this year and in the following years, be able to say, okay, what can someone do with $50,000? And is this still achievable with $50,000? It's a lot of money. It's not gonna, send you on a worldwide tour for a year. But how do we compare that with a previous winner to say this is achievable, and where are our understandings of that money and that impact as a committee as well? So we're still, I think, with this adjustment, we're still adjusting as a selection committee.
Don't forget that tax.
I see you, Sophia. Just Kwong, did you have one more note on that?
I was just going to remind folks that $50,000 is taxable income, and so adjust
Yeah.
it accordingly.
Important. You please include that on your budget. It's taxable income. And that said, it is also no strings attached from AFO. Besides that dissemination piece of presenting at our annual celebration, we don't require receipts. We don't require reports. We don't, this is to invest in you as individuals, as the fellows, to do what you see fit with it. Go ahead, Sophia.
Yeah, you're already talking about this, but I was wondering if there's other considerations you all make when you're looking at budgets that people submit.
Sure. Kwong, Jen, did you have any thoughts there?
I think the budget just kind of serves as kind of part of that, achievability kind of metric. There's nothing anything that I would say is particular about the budget, but we do look to see like if the funds will be well used, taxes, whether or not they have an awareness of kind of just making sure of checking those boxes. Nothing is like kind of irredeemable. Like if they didn't include the taxes in the budget, we just have to remind them, like, oh, don't forget, IRS will not forget. So in terms of the budget, I think it's, each particular proposal is so different that it requires a different kind of understanding of the monetary resources that are required. So it's hard to say. It's just kind of, have you put a lot of thought into it, and have you start to kind of think about how those particular funds might be an amplifier or a necessary kind of resource in order to achieve goals that otherwise would not be achievable.
Jen, did you have anything to add?
No, I was going to say, yes, that people showcase or illustrate their budget in many different ways. So some very itemized, and then others just generally going along with the timeline that they shared. So yeah, it's pretty open-ended.
Mm-hmm. And there are some people that will literally take this as their income while they are maybe taking a sabbatical from work, allowing themselves to be paid for this work. And then there are some people that don't do that at all, and they put it all towards the travel, towards the supplies, towards the publication, whatever that is. So that's really up for you to define. And we don't, again, we don't make decisions based on that. My whole career has almost always been competitions of some kind. And my response to that would be is that this is an opportunity for you to flush out your idea even further. So it's a requirement from us. We don't make, again, really meaningful decisions based on specifically that, but the opportunity for you to put that together and really say, this isn't just an idea that I have, but now I have a full understanding of what it would cost, what I would spend that money on, is an opportunity for you. And then we can see that you are taking it seriously enough that you have spent that time to put it together. But again, if all goes awry and you end up going a completely different direction and spending it on something else, we don't require those receipts. We don't compare what you put together in your application versus what you ended up spending it on. So it's a truly no strings attached opportunity. All right, we have just about 2 minutes left. I think I could take one more question, or we could wrap up from here. As we said, this will be posted on our website, so you have access to it to review. You have all 3 of our emails, so you can always shoot us messages. Any other last-minute questions?
Thanks, this was helpful.
Absolutely. Great. Can't wait to see your applications.
Thank you.
All right, thanks Jen and Kwong for spending the time with us today, and thank you all for taking
you.
your lunch hour to explore this more. We're really excited to see what comes this year.